If there is one thing I remember from my first Ironman, it is cramps. Such bad cramps. So what causes cramps and how do you prevent them? We're talking about exercise-associated muscle cramps. There are many causes for cramps and many of them are medical conditions or neurological disorders, and they're called muscle spasms. But essentially, they're all just cramps. They're sudden, unpredictable, involuntary, and generally don't do any lasting damage. But if they happen outside of exercise, they can indicate an underlying issue. The EAMC, so exercise-associated muscle cramps, are a bit different. They are pretty much self-inflicted. Not that anyone chooses to inflict cramps upon themselves, but if you stayed sat on the sofa and never did exercise, you could pretty much 100% of the time prevent exercise-associated muscle cramps. This is Andy Blow, sports scientist and owner of Precision Fuel and Hydration, who suffered cramps so badly, he started an entire company just to solve it. So Andy, what causes cramps?
Well, the problem is, nobody actually knows. There are two main competing theories. One is it's something to do with dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. The other one revolves around the idea that it's something in the muscles, something at a neuromuscular level, or more likely, it could be a combination of both.
Okay, let's look at each separately first. First, the dehydration theory, which has been around for a very long time. Basically, it states that cramps are caused by some kind of hydration or electrolyte imbalance, either losing too much salts and not replacing them with your fluid, or replacing your fluid without replacing any salts and getting that whole electrolyte fluid balance wrong.
Yes, your body needs a good range of sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium and other electrolytes to keep functioning properly, especially at a muscular level. Those electrolytes are involved in fluid balance and also in the electrical firing of the muscle itself, so the way it contracts and the way it relaxes. And if those electrolytes get out of balance, or if there's a big imbalance with the amount of fluid inside and outside a muscle cell, that can cause problems with contraction and relaxation, leading to a muscle cramp. Now, this theory isn't supported by huge amounts of lab-based evidence because it's a notoriously difficult phenomenon to actually assess in the lab, but there is a lot of anecdotal evidence out there, both in occupational health as well as in sport, that suggests there's some merit to it. There are also some studies that have been done in the lab that have looked at electrolyte replacement being used as a preventer or a reducer of cramps, and they've shown some positive effects.
Interesting. And then there's the neuromuscular theory, and this states that the cramps are caused by your nervous system being unable to keep up with the demands being placed on it.
Correct. So the neuromuscular theory focuses on contraction signals going down to the muscle itself and relaxation signals being sent back, and essentially those getting confused or overridden, causing the muscle to cramp. Again, some studies have supported this in the lab, but they've not been conclusive either, because really to study cramping properly, you need to be out in the field where it's happening to athletes in quite a random way.
This is the problem with it being so unpredictable. So which is the right answer? I don't know. As Andy says, no one really does. But there's lots of evidence of chronic cramp sufferers supplementing with salt and seeing improvement in their cramps. Conversely, there's also a lot of evidence of people getting badly dehydrated or hyponatremic, diluting their blood salts, and experiencing cramps more often. In fact, Andy, as a chronic sufferer of cramps, solved his pretty much only with salt. Is that right?
That's correct. I did a lot of research into this when I was suffering these problems because they were ruining all of the races that I did in hot environments. I found that I lose an absolute ton of salt in my sweat, and I modified my hydration regime to include more salt and less fluid, and it went away for me.
Magic. But equally, there are many examples of cramps with no underlying electrolyte imbalance to blame. This supports the neuromuscular theory. In my own personal experience, fatigue alone never actually brought on cramps, and nor did electrolyte imbalance really. However, at the end of long events where I was both fatigued and I had neglected my nutrition and hydration strategies, so I was a little bit dehydrated, then cramps were fairly common. Like that first Ironman of mine. I had a lot to learn at that point, and I learned some of it the hard way. Whatever the scientists eventually figure out, I'm sure they'll eventually have the answer for what causes cramps. The reality is you can make a few big steps now to reduce the likelihood of cramps stopping you in your next race, even if you don't know exactly how or why these methods work.
Taking in additional sodium is a cheap and easy intervention to try, especially if your cramps occur late on in long, hot races or after periods of heavy sweating. It might also be useful if you eat a low carb or a low sodium diet. Remember that the amount of sodium you're going to need is quite high. It's usually about 2 or 3 times the amount you'd find in a standard electrolyte drink.
You can do a sweat test, such as Precision Fuel and Hydration offer, or even just use their online planner, the link is down below this video, to estimate how much salt you're losing. But even without that personal information, the average human loses around 900 milligrams of electrolytes per liter of sweat. And heavy sweaters lose as much as 1500 milligrams per liter, but the average electrolyte drink only replaces 300 to 500 milligrams per liter. So you're still going to need some electrolyte supplementation on top of your sports drink.
Take the additional sodium in immediately before and during exercise that would normally give you cramps and see how you get on. You can fine-tune the dosage by seeing how your body feels and listening to your stomach in particular, because you've got to remember that taking in excess sodium can make you feel quite sick and nauseous if you do overdo it.
Fatigue is almost certainly a cause for cramps, so finding ways to minimize your fatigue in races can minimize your chance of cramps. If you only ever cramp in races, ask yourself if you're pushing harder in races than you ever do in training. Now obviously you only want to go to your limit in races, but that race effort level shouldn't be so foreign to your body that it causes cramps. Train specifically for the intensity and duration that your race will require. Pace yourself appropriately based on the fitness levels and environmental conditions to avoid overloading your muscles prematurely. Taper into events so that you are fresh and well rested when you start. Make sure you're adequately fueled and hydrated before the start, and keep well fueled during the event to prevent early fatigue.
There are other strategies that might work. They're less proven, but anecdotal evidence does suggest that they work for some people. They include sports massage and stretching, acupuncture, thorough warm-ups before activities that might have caused cramp, and mental relaxation techniques.
Although none of these are likely to offer a complete solution, they're generally easy to try, inexpensive, and may benefit your performance in other ways. So there seems little downside to giving them a try. Or you could drink pickle juice or eat chili powder. Care to explain?
You could try it. In recent years, there's been a lot of interest in substances that can stimulate the TRP, which is transient receptor potential channels in your mouth, because they're connected to the central nervous system, and the theory is that by stimulating them with something pungent, it can create a jolt that goes down that system and actually causes the muscle to relax.
It's like hacking your brain, or at least hacking your central nervous system. Yeah, substances like ginger, chili powder, pickle juice, and wasabi, cinnamon could all do these kind of things and actually stimulate those TRP channels and immediately cure cramps. It sounds too good to be true. The acetic acid in pickle juice is actually thought to be the thing that does it in your mouth and stimulates those channels, rather than the excessive levels of sodium in it, right?
That's correct, because I guess it used to be assumed that pickle juice was a cure for cramp because it had high sodium in it.
Yeah.
But what happens when you take pickle juice in some cases is a cramp that's happening is relieved immediately. And clearly that sodium that's in the pickle juice can't be absorbed and distributed about the body immediately. So it feels more likely it's something that's going on at the nervous system level.
Another argument for the neuromuscular theory. Well, we hope today we've helped you solve your cramping issues. We take no responsibility for the side effects of a mouthful of cinnamon or chili powder. If it has helped you, let us know in the comments section down below. A big thank you to Andy Blow from Precision Fuel and Hydration for helping us out with this video. Yeah, we're gonna try this?
Yeah, let's give it a go.
You go that one, I'll go this one. Oh.
Cheers.
Cheers. No, that's a no from me.